I'm Pamela Reed, 32, and I flew to Cleveland for my parents' 35th anniversary, hoping for family, maybe a hint of pride. My sister's text, "Be at the restaurant on time," was cold. No warmth, just orders. I've built a healthcare tech company, raised $2 million by 30, but at home, I'm still the kid who left the outsider. I thought this time might be different. Then my sister smirked, pointing to a chair in the hallway. "Sit there," she said. I was about to sit when the restaurant owner approached, smiled, and said, "Ma'am, your table is ready right this way, boss." My sister froze her eyes wide with shock. I smiled faintly. Sometimes the truth cuts deeper than you expect. Ever felt pushed aside by family? Smash that subscribe button and share your story below. I landed in Cleveland an hour ago, my suitcase still heavy with the weight of hope and nerves. The restaurant was just as I'd imagined, a sleek, upscale spot downtown, buzzing with the kind of polished energy you'd expect for my parents' 35th anniversary. I arrived 10 minutes early, dressed in a sharp blazer and heels, determined to show up as Pamela Reed, not the kid they still saw. The hostess led me to the private dining room, where crystal glasses gleamed under chandeliers, and I scanned for familiar faces. My sister was already there, directing servers like a stage manager, her smile tight and practiced. She spotted me, waved me over with a flick of her wrist, and said, "You're here good. We're keeping things organized." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Good to see you too," I said, my voice steady despite the jab of her tone. She handed me a place card, her manicured nails catching the light. "You're in the hallway," she said, pointing to a lone chair just outside the dining room, tucked near the entrance where coats hung and servers rushed by. "The main table's full, family, only you know." Her words hit like a slap, but her eyes held that familiar glint, the one that always said she was in charge. I glanced at the main table, mom and dad seated at the center, cousins and aunts, laughing over wine, the whole room alive with chatter. The hallway chair sat alone, a cheap fold-out. No tablecloth, no glassware, just a clear view of everyone who didn't notice me. I swallowed the heat in my chest, my fingers tightening around the place card. "The hallway?" I asked, keeping my tone even. Diane shrugged, her smile sharp. "It's practical. You're always so busy, figured you'd prefer the space." Her voice dripped with that fake sweetness she'd perfected over years of PTA meetings and neighborhood potlucks. I wanted to call her out, to ask why she always had to make me feel small, but the room was watching, and I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of a scene. I walked to the chair, my heels clicking too loud on the hardwood floor. The hallway smelled faintly of cleaning polish and spilled coffee, a stark contrast to the warm glow of the dining room. I set my purse down, smoothed my blazer, and sat my back straight, my eyes fixed on the family I'd flown across the country to see. Mom caught my gaze for a split second, her lips parting like she might say something, but then she turned back to a cousin's story, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Dad was deep in conversation with an uncle, his laugh low and familiar, the same one he used to share when we'd tinker with his old Chevy in the garage. That was before I left for Boston, before I became the daughter who didn't stick around, the one who traded family dinners for boardroom pitches. I'd raised $2 million for my healthcare tech company by 30, built a platform that connected hospitals with cutting-edge software, but to them, I was still the girl who ran off to chase dreams they didn't understand. From the hallway, I could see Diane working the room, adjusting napkins, whispering to servers, every move calculated to keep her at the center of it all. She'd always been the one who stayed married young, bought a house in the suburbs, raised 2 kids with perfect report cards. She was the daughter who showed up, who kept the family name polished in our small Ohio town. And me, I was the one who left the one they talked about in hushed tones, like my success was a puzzle they couldn't solve. A server rushed past, nearly knocking my chair, and I steadied myself, gripping the armrest. I'd faced worse investors who laughed at my pitches, partners who doubted a woman could run a tech firm. This was just family, I told myself. Just Diane playing her usual game. But as I sat there watching the clink of glasses and the easy laughter I wasn't part of, the sting settled deeper. I wasn't just outside the room, I was outside their world. And Diane knew it. I took a breath, pulled out my phone, and opened a blank text. For a moment, I thought about messaging my assistant back in Boston, someone who'd get why this hurt. But I put the phone away. I wasn't here to run. Not this time. If Diane wanted to push me out, I'd sit in this damn hallway and still show up as me. I was staring at my phone, the screen, blank, my thumb hovering over a text I'd never send. The hallway's hum servers rushing plates clinking felt like a wall between me and the party. Then a shadow fell across my lap. A young woman in a crisp black uniform stood there holding a plate of appetizers, her smile soft but curious. "Hey, you okay out here?" she asked, her voice cutting through the noise. "I'm fine," I said, forcing a grin, though my grip on the phone betrayed me. She set the plate on the armrest of my chair, a small act of kindness that hit harder than it should have. "I'm Natalie," she said, adjusting her name tag. "Figured you might be hungry, stuck out here." I glanced at the plate shrimp skewers neatly arranged, still steaming. "Thanks, Natalie," I said, my voice softer than I meant. She didn't rush off like the other servers. Instead, she leaned against the wall, her ponytail swinging slightly. "Rough night?" she asked, her tone light, but not prying. I shrugged, picking up a skewer. "Family stuff. You know how it is." "Oh, I get it," she said, laughing quietly. "My cousins act like I'm invisible unless they need something. You here for the big anniversary party?" I nodded, glancing toward the dining room where Mom's laugh floated over the chatter. "My parents' 35th. I flew in from Boston for it." "Boston? That's cool," Natalie said, her eyes lighting up. "I'm trying to get there myself one day. I'm in nursing school, well, part-time, saving up to finish. I want to work in healthcare tech, maybe build apps for patient care." I froze mid-bite, the shrimp suddenly forgotten. "Healthcare tech?" I asked, my interest spiking. "That's my field. I run a company that builds software for hospitals." "No way," Natalie's jaw dropped, her grin wide and genuine. "You're like living my dream." "What's it like? I mean, building something like that from scratch." Her excitement was contagious, pulling me out of the fog I'd been in. "It's tough," I said, leaning forward. "Long hours, skeptical investors, but when you see a hospital use your software to save time or lives, it's worth it." "What kind of apps are you thinking about?" She hesitated, like she wasn't used to being asked. "Something simple, maybe, for tracking patient vitals in real time." I had this idea in class. Hospitals lose so much time on paperwork. I want to fix that. I nodded, impressed. "That's smart. Real-time data's a game changer. You ever look into coding frameworks for that?" "Not yet," she admitted, her cheeks flushing. "I'm still learning Python, but it's slow going with work and school." "Keep at it," I said, meaning it. I started with Python too. Took me years to get my first prototype working, but it paid off. "You got a good head start." Natalie beamed, her shoulders relaxing. "Thanks. That means a lot coming from someone who's actually done it." She glanced at the dining room, then back at me. "So why are you out here? You don't strike me as the hallway type." I laughed, a sharp sound that surprised me. "My sister's call. She's got a thing for keeping me in my place." Natalie's brow furrowed, but she didn't push. "That's rough. My sister's the same, always acting like she's the boss of me. But you seem like you run your own show." Her words landed like a lifeline. I'd been sitting here feeling like the kid who didn't belong, but Natalie saw something else. "I try," I said, my voice steadying. "Doesn't always feel that way around family, though." "I hear you," she said, straightening up as a server called her name from the dining room. "Look, I gotta get back, but I'll swing by with more food later. Don't let them get to you." "Okay, I won't," I said, managing a real smile this time. She gave me a quick nod and headed back to the party, her steps light but purposeful. I leaned back in the chair, the shrimp skewer still in my hand, and took a slow breath. For the first time since I sat down, I didn't feel completely alone. Natalie's words echoed in my head. Someone out here saw me, not the outsider my family made me out to be. But as I glanced at the dining room where Diane was still holding court, I knew this night was far from over. I picked at the shrimp skewer. Natalie left the plate balanced awkwardly on my knee. Her words had given me a moment's warmth, but the hallway's chill crept back in. The dining room's noise, laughter, clinking glasses spilled through the open door just a few feet away, loud enough for me to catch every word. Then I heard my cousin Sharon, her voice sharp and smug. "Pamela's doing her own thing, I guess," she said, the kind of tone you use when you're trying to sound kind but aren't. I leaned forward, my chair creaking in the dim hallway. Sharon was at the main table, too far for me to see her face, but her voice carried clear as day. "She's working some tech job, right? Probably just tinkering with apps for local clinics, nothing big." My grip tightened on the skewer. A few cousins laughed, and an uncle's low chuckle hit me like a punch. They didn't even look toward the hallway, didn't notice me sitting here. My blazer pressed my heels, still polished from the flight. Sharon kept going, her words slicing deeper. She always had these grand ideas, but dropping college for that sounds like a long shot to me. I bit my lip hard. I didn't drop out. I graduated early, built a healthcare tech company from scratch, secured $2 million in funding by 30. My software was in hospitals nationwide, saving time, saving lives. But to them, I was just the dreamer who left Cleveland for nothing. I wanted to march in there, set them straight, but my legs wouldn't move. I'd tried explaining before, and it never stuck. Diane's voice slipped in smooth as silk. "That's Pamela for you," she said, her tone dripping with fake concern. "Always going her own way, even if it's unconventional." The table burst into laughter, louder than before, and my chest tightened. Diane wasn't just letting them talk, she was steering it, twisting my life into a story that fit her narrative. I could picture her at the head of the table, her pearl necklace catching the light, her smile practiced and perfect. She'd done this for years, holiday dinners, family picnics, always framing me as the reckless one, the sister who didn't belong. From the hallway, I caught a glimpse of Mom through the open door. She nodded along to Sharon's words, her smile stiff, like she wasn't sure whether to speak up. Dad sat quietly, his fork hovering over his plate, his eyes fixed downward. Neither of them corrected. Sharon didn't mention the Forbes article about my company, the award I'd won last year. To them, I was still the girl who ran off, who didn't fit their small-town mold. Sharon lowered her voice, but it still reached me. "I checked her company's website," she said, like it was some big reveal. "Looks slick, but half those tech startups crash and burn. Bet she's barely getting by." Another cousin chimed in, her tone playful but cutting. "Yeah, probably living on ramen and energy drinks, coding all night." The laughter hit me harder than I expected, each word a reminder of how little they knew. I'd built something real, something that mattered, but in their eyes, I was a failure waiting to happen. Diane's voice came again, softer, almost pitying. "She'll come around eventually. Some people just need to learn the hard way." My nails dug into the armrest, the wood cold under my fingers. Diane wasn't just encouraging them. She was rewriting me, turning my work into a joke to keep herself on top. I stared at the place card on my plate, my name in her perfect handwriting, like a tag for someone who didn't belong. For a second, I thought about grabbing my phone, texting my team in Boston, people who saw what I'd built. But I didn't. I'd come here for Mom and Dad, to be part of this family, even if they couldn't see me. The dining room's laughter swelled again, Diane leading a toast to Mom and Dad, glasses clinking in a world I wasn't part of. I sat back, the hallway's shadows closing in, feeling more like an outsider than ever. I sat in the hallway, the place card with my name in Diane's neat handwriting crumpled in my fist. The sting of Sharon's words and Diane's smug encouragement still burned, their laughter echoing through the open door a few feet away. I was ready to grab my purse, call a cab, and leave this night behind when the door to the dining room swung wider. Diane stood there, her pearl necklace glinting, her eyes scanning the hallway like she was checking if I'd dared to step out of place. Before I could say anything, a man in a tailored suit approached, his steps calm but purposeful. He stopped beside me, his smile professional yet warm. "Ms. Pamela Reed?" he asked, his voice clear and steady. "That's me," I said, my voice catching as I dropped the place card. Diane's gaze snapped to the man, her brow furrowing. "I'm Paul Grant, the restaurant manager," he said, offering a firm handshake. Then he raised his voice slightly enough to carry through the open door. "Ma'am, your table is ready, right this way, boss." The word landed like a bomb. The dining room went quiet, the clink of glasses and chatter stopping dead. Diane froze in the doorway, her face paling, her wineglass trembling in her hand. I glanced past her and saw Sharon's jaw drop, her auburn hair catching the light as her smugness vanished. The cousins exchanged stunned glances, their earlier jokes about my failed startup crumbling. Mom's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Dad just stared, his fork hovering his face, a mix of surprise and something I couldn't read. I stood, my heels clicking on the hardwood, my heart pounding with a mix of pride and hurt. Paul gestured toward the dining room, his tone unwavering. "We've reserved a spot for you at the main table," he said, loud enough for the room to hear. "Your investment in our chain has been a game changer, Ms. Reed. We're honored to have you here." Diane stepped aside, her face still pale, her eyes locked on me like she was seeing a stranger. I followed Paul into the room, every eye on me, the silence heavy. Sharon fidgeted with her napkin, her cheeks flushed. The cousins avoided my gaze, their laughter replaced by awkward coughs. Paul pulled out a chair next to Mom, and I sat, the warmth of the main table a sharp contrast to the hallway's chill. Paul faced the room, his voice steady. "Ms. Reed's company transformed how we operate," he said. "Her investment helped us open 3 new locations, including this one. We wouldn't be here without her vision." A few guests clapped, the sound hesitant, breaking the tension. Mom grabbed my hand, her fingers shaking. "Pamela, you never told us," she whispered, her voice thick with pride and confusion. I squeezed her hand, my throat tight. "How do you explain years of being dismissed, of being the odd one out?" Dad cleared his throat, his eyes meeting mine for a moment. "That's something," he said, his voice gruff, almost approving. But he looked away, back to his plate, and the moment slipped. Diane hadn't moved from the doorway, her glass now set down, her hands clenched at her sides. Her eyes burned into me, a flicker of jealousy cutting through her shock. She'd spent the night framing me as the reckless dreamer, and now the truth had unraveled her narrative. I wanted to feel victorious, but the ache in my chest lingered. This recognition, this seat at the table, should have felt like a triumph, but it only highlighted how far apart we were. Paul gave me a nod, his smile genuine. "Enjoy the evening, boss," he said softly, then headed toward the kitchen. The room stirred back to life, conversations restarting in low murmurs. Sharon muttered something about "that's impressive" to a cousin, but it sounded forced. Diane finally moved, sitting back at the table, her movements stiff like she was trying to reclaim control. I leaned back in my chair, Mom's hand still warm in mine, but my eyes drifted to the hallway where I'd sat alone. The word boss echoed in my head, a badge of what I'd built, but also a reminder of everything they'd never understood. The dining room buzzed with forced chatter, the clink of glasses a thin cover for the tension left by Paul's announcement. I sat at the main table, Mom's hand still warm in mine, but Diane's silence across the table was louder than the party. Her eyes hadn't met mine since I'd taken my seat. Her face tight, her movements sharp as she pushed food around her plate. I couldn't stay there, pinned under their stares, their half-hearted compliments. When I saw Diane slip toward the lounge area, I excused myself, my heels clicking as I followed her, my heart pounding with words I'd held back too long. The lounge was quiet, a small space with plush chairs and dim lighting away from the party's noise. Diane stood by a mirror adjusting her necklace, her reflection catching me as I stepped in. She turned her lips curling into that practiced smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Pamela," she said, her voice clipped. "Enjoying your moment?" I stopped a few feet away, my hands clenched at my sides. "What was that out there, Diane?" I asked, my voice low but steady. "You spent the whole night making me sound like a failure. Why?" She raised an eyebrow, her smile fading. "Don't be dramatic," she said, turning back to the mirror. "I didn't say anything that wasn't true. You left Pamela. You chose your life over family." Her words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. "I built something," I said, stepping closer. "A company that's saving lives, Diane. 2 million in funding contracts with hospitals. And you told them I'm scraping by chasing dreams that won't last." Diane's hands froze on her necklace, her eyes meeting mine in the mirror. For a second I thought she'd deny it, but she turned her face hard. "You think you're better than us?" she said, her voice sharp. "You waltz in here after years away acting like you're above everyone." "I stayed, Pamela. I kept this family together while you were off playing CEO." My chest burned, anger rising like a tide. "Playing CEO," I snapped, my voice shaking. "I worked nights, weekends, begged investors who laughed in my face. I built something real, and all you've done is tear it down. Why, Diane? Why can't you just be happy for me?" She crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "Happy for you," she said, her voice dropping to a hiss. "You have no idea what it's like. Do you? Watching you get all the attention, the articles, the awards. I've been here holding mom and dad's hands, planning their lives while you get called boss by strangers." Her words hung heavy, raw, and unguarded. She was jealous not just of tonight, but of everything I'd built. I waited, my breath shallow, expecting an apology, a hint of regret. But Diane just stared, her jaw tight, her silence louder than any words. "You're jealous," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "That's it, isn't it? You can't stand that I made it, that I didn't need your approval to do it." Diane's eyes flashed, but she didn't deny it. "I'm not apologizing," she said, her voice cold. "You chose to leave. You don't get to come back and expect us to bow down." The air felt thick, my anger boiling over. "I didn't want you to bow," I said, my voice rising. "I wanted you to see me, Diane. To see what I've done, not twist it into some story that makes you feel better. You put me in the hallway, let Sharon and everyone else talk like I'm nothing. And now you stand here admitting you're jealous, but you won't even say you're sorry." She looked away, her fingers twisting the edge of her sleeve. "You don't understand," she muttered. "You've always been the one who got away with everything." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Got away with everything? I fought for every inch of my life, Diane. You could have asked, could have called, could have cared. But you didn't. You made me the outsider, and I'm done letting you." Her face softened for a split second, like she might say something real, but then her mask snapped back. She straightened, her voice flat. "Fine, be the big shot. But don't expect me to cheer for it." I stood there, my heart racing, my hands trembling. I wanted to scream, to shake her until she saw me, not the sister she resented, but the woman who'd built a life despite her. But the words caught in my throat, heavy with years of hurt. I turned, my heels loud against the floor, and walked out, leaving Diane in the lounge, her reflection alone in the mirror. A month after the party, I sat at a corner table in a Cleveland coffee shop, the hum of espresso machines filling the air. Mom had called me last week, her voice soft, but urgent, begging for a chance to fix things. I'd flown back from Boston not because I believed in reconciliation, but because I couldn't say no to her. The memory of that night, Diane's cold words in the lounge, her refusal to apologize, still burned a wound that hadn't healed. I sipped my latte, my purse on the chair beside me, waiting for the conversation I knew would hurt. The door chimed, and Mom walked in, her scarf loose around her shoulders, her face lined with worry. Diane followed her steps, stiff, her pearl earrings catching the morning light. She didn't look at me. her eyes fixed on the counter as if ordering coffee could delay the inevitable. I set my cup down, my hand steady, though my heart raced with the same anger I'd felt in that hallway. Pamela, Mom said, sitting across from me, her voice gentle. "Thank you for coming. I just want us to talk, to be a family again." I nodded, my throat tight, but my eyes were on Diane. She sat reluctantly, her posture rigid, her hands clasped tight. "I don't know why I'm here," she muttered, finally meeting my gaze. "You made it clear you're done with me." "I am," I said, my voice calm but sharp. "I meant what I said at the party, Diane. I'm done with you twisting my life, making me the outsider. I don't want this us anymore." Her jaw tightened, a flash of defiance in her eyes. "You think you're the only one who's hurt?" she said, her voice low. "I stayed, Pamela. I took care of Mom and Dad, kept this family together while you were off building your empire. And now you act like you're above us." I leaned forward, my anger flaring. "Above you?" I said, my voice rising. "You put me in that hallway, Diane. You let Sharon and the others tear me down, laughed while they called my work a pipe dream. I built a company that saves lives, and you couldn't even ask about it. You're not holding this family together. You're pushing me out." Mom's hand reached for mine, her fingers trembling. "Pamela, please," she said, her voice breaking. "Don't do this. You're sisters. We can work through this like we always have." I looked at her, my chest aching. Her eyes were pleading, her face etched with the hope that I could stay, that we could be whole again. "Mom, I love you," I said softly, my voice wavering. "But I've spent years trying to fit into her version of family. I can't keep fighting for a place that doesn't exist." Diane's eyes narrowed, her voice cold. "You're so quick to walk away," she said. "You think you're better than us, don't you? With your awards, your boss title? You don't know what it's like to stay." Her words cut, but they only sharpened my resolve. "I know exactly what it's like," I said, my voice steady now. "I know what it's like to work nights, to beg investors, to build something from nothing while you told everyone I'd fail. I'm not walking away because I'm better, Diane. I'm walking away because I'm done letting you define me." Mom's eyes filled with tears, her hand tightening on mine. "Pamela, don't go," she whispered. "We need you." "Diane's sorry. She just doesn't know how to say it." I glanced at Diane, waiting for a sign, any hint of regret. But her face was stone, her silence deafening. She wasn't sorry, not at the party, not now. I pulled my hand back, my heart heavy but certain. "She's not sorry, Mom," I said, my voice breaking. "And I can't keep waiting for her to be." I stood, grabbing my purse, my heels clicking on the tiled floor. Diane didn't move, her eyes fixed on the table, her hands still clasped. Mom reached for me, her voice desperate. "Pamela, please," she said, standing. "Give it time. We can fix this." I stopped at the door, the weight of her words pulling at me. "I've given it years, Mom," I said, turning to face her. "I love you, but I need to let this go. I've built a life where I'm enough. I don't need her approval anymore." The door chimed as I stepped outside, the Cleveland air cool against my skin. The city stretched before me, its skyline sharp and indifferent. I called a cab, my fingers steady, my breath even. The party, the hallway, Diane's jealousy, they were behind me now. I'd come for Mom, for a family that never truly saw me. But walking away, I felt free, like I'd finally claimed the space I'd fought for all along. 6 months after that coffee shop meeting, I stood in my Boston office, the city skyline glowing through the window. The hum of my team working outside, phones ringing, keyboards clicking, felt like a pulse, steady and alive. My company had just signed a new contract with a major hospital, our tech saving lives across 3 states. I traced my finger along the edge of a framed article on my desk, its headline calling me a rising star in medical tech. It was everything I'd fought for, but the quiet moments still brought me back to Cleveland, to that night, and the family I'd left behind. The party felt like a lifetime ago. The hallway where Diane had placed me, the sting of Sharon's words, Paul calling me boss. They were shadows now, distant but sharp. That night, I'd walked away from the restaurant from Diane's jealousy from a family that couldn't see me. The coffee shop meeting with Mom and Diane had only confirmed what I already knew: some gaps can't be bridged. Diane's silence, her refusal to apologize, had settled like a stone in my chest, but it also set me free. I'd spent years chasing their approval, trying to fit into their story. Diane's voice, sharp and dismissive, had followed me from childhood to that party, telling me I was too much, too different. But standing in my office, surrounded by what I'd built, I realized I didn't need her to understand. I didn't need anyone to. My work machines that helped doctors save lives was my truth, my place. It wasn't about being better than them. It was about being enough for myself. Mom called sometimes, her voice soft, her words careful. "Pamela, how's Boston?" she'd ask, always steering clear of Diane's name. I'd tell her about new projects, the lives we'd touched, and she'd listen, pride mixing with a quiet sadness. I sent her and Dad photos of my office, my team, the award ceremonies I attended. They'd reply with short texts, emojis of hearts and clapping hands, but I could feel the distance. Not cold, not angry, just there. I loved them, always would, but I'd stopped waiting for them to fully see me. Diane hadn't reached out since the coffee shop. No calls, no texts, not even a word through Mom. I didn't expect her to. Her jealousy, her need to keep me small, had built a wall too high to climb. Sometimes late at night, I'd wonder if she'd ever change, if she'd ever see me as more than the sister who left. But those thoughts faded quickly. I'd spent too long trying to fit into her world, and I was done. I stepped out of my office, the Boston evening crisp and clear. The Charles River glittered as I walked along its edge, my scarf loose around my shoulders. I passed joggers, couples, people living their own stories, and for the first time, I felt like I belonged in mine. The party had been a breaking point, not just with Diane, but with the version of myself that needed their approval. I'd walked away not out of anger, but out of clarity. I'd built a life that was mine, flawed, hard-won, but real. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Mom. "Thinking of you, Pamela. Come home soon." I smiled, my fingers hovering over the screen. I typed back, "Soon, Mom. Love you." I meant it, but home wasn't Cleveland anymore. It wasn't the restaurant, the hallway, or the table I'd fought to sit at. Home was here, in the life I'd carved out, in the work that filled my days, in the quiet certainty that I was enough. I kept walking, the city lights stretching ahead. The weight of that night, of Diane's words, of Mom's pleas, had lifted, replaced by something lighter, stronger. I wasn't the sister in the hallway anymore. I wasn't the outsider. I was Pamela Reed, the woman who'd built something bigger than their doubts. And as the river flowed beside me, I knew I'd never look back.